Pluto. Death, rebirth, and transformation. In this chapter, we will explore the nature of Pluto, its illuminating mythology, some of the difficulties in dealing with its compelling nature, and how these transformational issues manifest in relationships. We will explore Pluto's psychological process of bringing subconscious material into conscious awareness, and offer techniques for aligning with the best that this dark planet has to offer. Pluto is the gate to the final frontier for the explorer of consciousness and is not for the timid. It is the doorway into the initiatory descent, which takes you to the depths of your consciousness in order to root out past karma and purge the consciousness of all that is not the self. Pluto is the farthest planet away from the sun. As such, it represents that which is furthest away from the center of your self-identity, and is obviously the hardest to incorporate into self-awareness. It functions like a volcano in that it brings to the surface of conscious awareness that which was previously hidden. It represents subconscious drives and hidden motivations that must be purged for one to truly be open to intimacy with others and with life itself. Pluto's highest manifestation leads to renewal, transformation, regeneration, and healing. Its lower manifestations include control and manipulation of others, the destructive compulsive tendencies, and all forms of perversion of the spirit. Pluto is a transpersonal planet and is beyond the realm where you have personal control. It represents your connection to the collective shadow that intrudes the human experience on this planet. Until a person is willing to look at their own role in maintaining this shadow level of the human consciousness, Pluto operates as subconscious motivations that distort conscious choices. Pluto's issues are heavy in nature. It is impossible to put a light-hearted spin on the planet associated with death. But to the explorer of consciousness, Pluto represents the transformation that comes from purging who you aren't to becoming who you are. It takes strength of character to look into the face of Pluto, where you will see the darker side of your own character and reconnect with painful memories. Pluto's orbit takes 250 years, thus it connects you to a cycle of time of that duration. Your current personality wasn't here 250 years ago, but the origins that make up the current you can be traced back this far. We could call Pluto your karmic account that you brought with you from previous lives. You do not have to believe in reincarnation to work with Pluto, but at a minimum, it is appropriate metaphor to consider. If we come into this life with a certain amount of karma, then some destined experiences are going to happen one way or the other. Considering the possibility of past life issues while dealing with Pluto help to remove the defensiveness and sense of injustice from your current situation. If you do not work with Pluto, it works on you and manifests as obsessives and compulsions that drive your conscious choices from an unseen place. At the highest level, Pluto represents your destiny, your soul's purpose in life. Many people want to know their soul's purpose, but few are willing to accept Pluto's terms. This requires absolute surrender, not surrendering as in giving up, but surrendering your will to your higher self's promptings. You cannot barter with this part of your character. It takes a powerful faith to trust in surrendering to a force larger than the self. You must believe that your soul would never lead you into anything less than what is your highest good and best interest. Pluto in mythology. In mythology, Pluto's role was that of the ruler of the realm of the underworld. On one of his journeys to the world above the surface, Pluto cast his eyes on Persephone, the goddess of innocence and springtime, and became overwhelmed by a desire for her. He abducted her and took her to his underworld home to be his queen. Ceres, Demeter in Greek mythology, Persephone's mother, after searching the world over for her daughter, eventually discovered her whereabouts. In her anger, Ceres brought droughts and plagues upon the earth. Eventually, Ceres petitioned Jupiter to persuade Pluto to return Persephone to her. Jupiter consented on the condition that he would only help if Persephone had not eaten any food in Pluto's domain. If she had, he would be powerless to intervene. Pluto was aware of these conditions and seduced Persephone into eating a pomegranate seed he offered her. Since she had taken the food, Jupiter was powerless to demand her complete return, but a compromise was arranged so that Persephone would return to her mother for part of the year and remain with Pluto for the remainder. Thus, the seasons were born. This myth paints Pluto in a particularly unfavorable light, ruler of the dark world, abductor, seducer, and a word I cannot say on here, of Persephone. It is easy to see from these associations why, historically, Pluto has been given such negative interpretations. The myth reveals why individuals have such a fear of surrendering to forces outside of personal control where Pluto is concerned. There is a fear of losing one's innocence and being subjugated to the manipulative control of a dark force. Earlier versions of this myth suggest that Persephone willingly went to Pluto's realm on her own accord. This simple shift in the storyline changes the meaning altogether. The abduction, the violence, and the fear are missing from this alternative and perhaps healthier version of the myth. Here, the feminine willingly sacrifices her innocence to embrace her passion and to surrender her to transformation. Pluto is not to be feared, respected certainly, but not feared. Pluto represents the final gate in one's surrendering to a life guided by a higher force. If we willingly surrender to its force, we can avoid the abduction. The Pluto initiation. It can be seen from these myths why one must descend into the Pluto realms to awaken to full consciousness. One must be willing to go deep within the self, face one's fears, and even confront awareness of eventual mortality to assimilate this level of consciousness. This confirmation with the dark night of the soul is necessary if one is to live life free of fear. The more you are susceptible to fear, the more you will shy away from the Pluto level, as fear is one of its guardians. You have to be able to confront your fears and move past them. It is not that fear goes away. It is that you develop the courage to move through the fear. We want to grow into the light. We picture the spiritual path leading to enlightenment. But just as the darkest part of the night precedes the dawn, confronting the dark side, the shadow self proceeds growing into the light. The shadow contains all the parts of you that you have kept hidden from yourself. To become whole, to awaken to your full power, this shadow side of the self must be accepted as well. A philosophical view. Pluto links us to issues we've been working on for many incarnations. Pluto represents a part of our character that has never forgot what our soul's purpose was for coming into this incarnation. A big picture view of our purpose on this planet is to heal ourselves and our relationships with one another, and to purge the world of fear and darkness so that we may all be more fully appreciate the gift of spirit that life truly is. To heal our planet, we first must be able to accept human darkness as a condition to which we are born. This requires a courageous look into the darker recesses of character to identify and root out the darkness that is part of inner consciousness. Since Pluto experiences are beyond the ego's ability to understand, there exists a natural fear in encounters with this part of our character. The fear is that of losing control, and we do lose ego control when engaging Pluto. The ego, which tends to dominate our consciousness, sends forth the message that we are moving into dangerous territory. There are two levels in the Pluto realm. One is personal, and the other is collective. We each have our personal share of the collective darkness of humanity within ourselves. Pluto brings with it our personal karma with particular dark side issues. Some people may need to work with jealousy, while others work with addictive tendencies or violence, lust, greed, or whatever. We each have personal shadow issues. After purging yourself of personal karma, you are still not free of collective dark side issues. You are no longer working on your personal shadow issues, but now you evolve to work on the collective shadow. To apply this information in your life, take special note of the next time you are caught up in one of Pluto's layers: jealousy, resentment, hostile anger, etc. If it is not your personal karma, you should be able to disassociate from the experience. If you are able to detach from the experience and see it as something you are experiencing, not you, but merely something you are going through, it is not your personal issue. Instead, it is a collective issue. If you are not able to detach and disassociate from the experience, it is your personal karma. You are advised to plunge in to see what lessons need to be learned until you become free to let go of that experience. It takes considerably more work to deal with personal issues than collective ones. When the issues you are working with is collective, you can simply dismiss the issue. If you can see it, name it, and disassociate from the experience, it loses its power over you. Although it might sound a little odd, the following is a method for disassociating from a collective karmic issue. Say to yourself, this is the experience of jealousy or hatred, greed, etc. that we humans go through. Now, instead of identifying with the experience as your personal karma, identify it as your part in a collective issue, and you will be able to work with the issue with greater detachment. To facilitate this detachment, take note of your language. Instead of saying, I am jealous, try saying, I am experiencing jealousy. This simple shift helps. In the first example, you are identifying with this experience as the self. In the second example, the experience is not your identity. It is something you are going through, but it is not you. This simple shift makes it possible to shed the experience altogether. Death, birth, and regeneration. Although Pluto does deal with literal death as a final transformation, this will be covered later in the chapter, here we are referring to it in terms of the many deaths and rebirths we all go through. Death, rebirth, and regeneration is the cycle of life. To have the birth of the new, there must be the death of the old. Nature teaches this lesson so clearly. The trees that have not been cut back will not be the biggest producers of fruit in the following season. The grass that is not mowed will not remain fresh and green, but rather it will turn to seed and die. It is the death of the old that leads to the rebirth of the new. Each initiation we go through is preceded by a death. The wedding initiates us into the world of marriage, but also signals the death of single life. The inverse of this is equally true. Getting laid off from a job is the death of that cycle and the initiating of the next cycle. Endings and beginnings, beginnings and endings. This is the way of life. We speak poetically of the death and rebirth process and relate it to the chrysalis, chrysalis, process of the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Indeed, it is a beautiful sight to behold, but one wonders, how does the caterpillar feel about it? Is it the one whose guts are being eaten out? Pluto processes often feel just like that, like your guts are being eaten out during the process. It takes profound faith to courageously let go of a past identity and believe that a higher form of existence awaits on the other side. Since Pluto is beyond the ego's ability to control the experience, the ego must surrender its grip on reality to go through the process. Just as a caterpillar must surrender its life to become the butterfly, the ego must surrender its life to evolve to even greater levels of reality. Pluto wounds. Pluto wounds can be the most horrific of all. Betrayal, abandonment, abuse, and so forth. There is a benign aspect of the conscious mind. There is a benign aspect of the conscious mind, sending some of the horrible experiences we have encountered to the subconscious realm of Pluto. It is a good thing that we do not consciously remember everything that has happened to us, but when these subconsciously held memories skew our behavior, they can be troublesome. The subconscious becoming conscious. The conscious mind is said to be like a cork floating on the vast sea of the subconscious. The cork represents the limited amount that you can consciously be aware of at any time. The sea is the vast storehouse of all your experiences, even past life experiences. Transformation and growth in consciousness can be described as the process of the subconscious becoming conscious. Pluto represents the subconscious motivations that influence your behavior, but if they are subconscious, how can you know? By definition, the subconscious is that which is unknown, beneath the level of conscious awareness. If you know it, you can be sure that it is not your subconscious. This process of the subconscious becoming conscious is an infinite process. There is always more to absorb until you have reached Christ consciousness or Buddhahood. Pluto's job is to bring information from the subconscious into the conscious awareness, like a volcano bringing the molten lava from the depths of the earth to the surface. How is the ego likely to react in this situation? Threatened, of course. You have to assume that fear will be present when working with Pluto issues. The ego is always going to sound the alarm because something is happening outside of its control. This happens. What happens next is up to you. Do you align with the fear, pull back from the experience, deny it, and hide from it? That would be normal. Or do you move into the experience even in the face of the fear? This allows you to become conscious of influences from the unconscious that have been previously molding your behavior. Have courage and realize that whatever is now emerging into your subconscious awareness has been influencing you all along from the subconscious realms. The courageous explorer of consciousness seeks out subconscious behavior patterns in order to be conscious of them. When you find yourself behaving in a way that is totally inappropriate for what you are consciously trying to do not reject the behavior in disgust and guilt. Accept it as a messenger. Accept it as a perfect messenger of some forgotten memory of an experience that is animating your inexplicable behavior. Memories come on the heels of infantile behavior patterns when you ask yourself, when was this behavior the appropriate response in my life? You will likely be brought back to a memory of when the current behavior first began. Concentrate your search here to facilitate the memories coming to the surface. The hidden self revealed through others. A tremendous number of clues as to your subconscious behavior patterns can be discovered through closely observing how others respond to you. At one stage of growth, each of us defends an image of who we think we are. If someone offers an opinion about you that is inconsistent with your established self-identity, you reject the information and likely the person as well. As you continue to develop, your need to defend yourself gradually diminishes. You become more secure in who you are and not so threatened by the way others view you. This is when you can start seeing the clues to hidden parts of your character revealed in other people's reactions to you. It is much easier to see other people's subconscious motivations than it is to see them in yourself. You need the perspective of others in order to truly know who you are. It is not that their view of you is right and your view is wrong. It's only that their view is another reflection of the many facets of your being. Each of the people you interact with reflects their own slightly different perspective of the total you. You can benefit by watching other people's reactions to you. Take them in. If your reactions are somehow screening you from this valuable data, learn to get out of your way and let the information in. The first time someone tells you something about you that you don't already know or that you see differently, you're likely to discount that perception, preferring to believe the person just doesn't know you very well. The second and third times that other people in other situations give you the same feedback about yourself, you're still likely to discount the information. Eventually, though, your attention will be captured. All of these people know you in different ways, but are telling you similar things. This is when you begin to suspect that you might not know yourself as well as you thought you did. That is the breakthrough moment. Let go of your defenses and truly see yourself reflected through others. Often, the path to your destiny is revealed through other people's responses. Pay attention when people mention that you are particularly gifted or talented in one way or another. Try not to discount the information, even if you don't believe you are as great as someone makes you out to be. Is there a consistency here? Have other people mentioned the same talent in you? Is it consistent with something to which you aspire? This is where destiny is revealed. Even if you aren't sure that you'll be able to live up to others' expectations, if other people are receiving benefit from you, step out of the way and let the good happen. Power, manipulation, and intention. Pluto is collective power, and to engage Pluto is to be tested with the right use of power. Simply said, can you engage your use of power in such a way that benefits yourself and others and is at no one's expense? Influence, persuasion, manipulation, and intimidation differ only in subtle ways. Many spiritual and ethical people shy away from the word manipulation. It touches a sensitive chord. The people without morals and a spiritual base in life have never been afraid of the concept of manipulation. On the contrary, they become masters of its use. The word manipulation is a red flag for most of us. Is it wrong? It will be greatly depend on the intent, wouldn't it? A chiropractor is manipulative. So are nurses, counselors, teachers, performers, gardeners, and lovers. All of these people have learned how to manipulate others to bring out their best. Manipulation is not wrong if it brings out the best in everyone involved. How else are we going to heal this planet and bring about the changes that are necessary if we are not willing to be influential? Our spiritual heritage is not our spiritual future. In past spiritual cultures, aspirants learned to renounce the world. This was an important tenet of all spiritual traditions. Usually, there were vows that an aspirant would take dealing with the denial of earthly power in favor of divine grace. Poverty, chastity, and obedience, remember? This renouncing of earthly power has minimalized the influence of those with spiritual values. Be willing to have power and influence, but first make sure your own house is in order. Always be willing to review your own motivations, learn more about who you are, and change to incorporate what you have learned. Be relentless in your attempts to heal yourself, your relationships, and the planet. Pluto in relationships. In relationships, the highest urge connected to Pluto is to be an ego-death relationship in which both individuals relinquish their separate sense of self to be transformed in a union that goes beyond the experience of separateness. To achieve this type of healing, relationship requires that one first be able to ferret out the negative manifestations of Pluto in relationships. These include obsessive-compulsive behavior, the compartmentalization of thinking about yourself in one way and acting in another, habitual ways of relating, and control and manipulation games in the relationship, whether you are the victim or the perpetrator. Although you can never see your own subconscious motivations, you can see them in others, and vice versa. This is why people involved in relationships can potentially accelerate their growth in consciousness. You always have a mirror around you that can reflect your true motivations. In long-term relationships, couples hopefully have learned the art of adapting to each other's growth and transformation. Without this, your long-term relationships can actually block growth. It is shocking to wake up next to a person you have been with for years and suddenly realize you no longer know this person. You listen to them talk and you realize how deeply their values have changed. You look closely and realize that they hardly even look familiar anymore. It is even more shocking when you realize that you have gone through a major transformation and no longer are the same person your partner knew years ago. As you grow, learn, and experience life, you incorporate your experiences and, at times, make radical shifts in your beliefs and values from your awakening consciousness. Perhaps your values about sexuality, money, recreation, or life itself are not the same as they used to be. These changes usually occur slowly over time, but your awareness of them is often quite sudden. What do you do then? Hopefully, you will have the courage to trim back the dead wood and make way for the new growth. Transformation that leads to growth in consciousness could be something that people celebrate in each other, but more often it is a process that is feared, especially when transformation is occurring with your partner. With change comes the fear that the foundation of security that you share will be shaken up. There is no way you can be sure that your partner will still be interested in sharing the same type of relationship with you once the transformation is complete. But as you learn to welcome change rather than to fear it, you can go through these changes together rather than just standing back and watching it happen. Couples have to face this fear in order to maintain a long-term relationship. When you truly love someone, you help them on their path of growth. You support them while they take classes, read stimulating books, and experiment with new ways of being. You do this even when you do not share their enthusiasm, because to not support their efforts risks your being part of the problem rather than part of the solution to the growth they seek. Your fear in regard to their growth is often that your partner will grow away from you. If you are the one making waves by seeking out change, try to be compassionate and understand that your partner's resistance to your transformation is not a rejection of you, but rather is rooted in the fear of losing you. With this awareness, you can reassure and educate your partner so that your changes will not be as threatening to your relationship. Many of the changes that any of us go through are silent. They are slow building transformations that begin on the inner level. At first, they are just thoughts, perhaps dreams, and ever so slowly, they work themselves up to the point where you can recognize that a change is occurring. Eventually, you are able to talk about it with your partner, but it takes time before you can share the experience. Most often, when it reaches the level where you can talk about it, transformation has already begun. Still, couples are often frustrated when their partner is not aware of what is going on within them. Before you pass judgment on your partner for a perceived lack of sensitivity, ask yourself, what have you done to inform your partner of the transformation you are going through? Looking at difficulties in relationships as being symbolic of unintegrated aspects of the self is the only powerful position to come from in working out relationship problems. There needs to be a willingness to face and accept the lower and hidden aspects of one's nature. Without a willingness to look within, you will see these unintegrated aspects of yourself expressed only in others, but never yourself. When the focus is on what the other person can do to improve, there is no power, and you are at the mercy of the other person as to whether or not they are willing to do the required work. It is simply too much of a risk to be in a relationship where your happiness and fulfillment depend on the actions of your partner. Degrees of obsession. Obsession is being compulsively preoccupied with an idea, a belief, or a person. There are many degrees of this behavior, and if extreme anxiety accompanies the obsession, professional help is advised and is beyond the scope of what we will deal with here. There are other levels of obsession to which most people will be able to relate. Being infatuated with someone in the flush of new love is delightful. Thinking of your new love fills you with warmth and a glow, so you often find yourself musing over your beloved. Obsession is one stop further on the train of passion. The warm glow is replaced by the raw edge of hunger. It is no longer delightful. Now, the emotion felt can be best described as an ache, not joy, not love for the other. If that were the case, your heart would be joyous with the thought. With obsession, joy is replaced by a dull ache in the heart that it seems only the object of your obsession can heal. You have lost yourself in the other, powerless to control even your own thoughts because you've given your power to the object of your obsession. Obsession comes from surrendering to the Pluto level of consciousness without maintaining balance in the areas symbolized by the personal planets. Obsessions manifest in relationships in various ways. We can imagine worst-case scenarios such as the stalker or someone spying on the other. Again, these terribly invasive and threatening obsessions are beyond the scope of this book. A more common experience is having such a hunger for deep love that you lose yourself in a projected fantasy image of what you wish were true about another. Jealousy can trigger becoming obsessed with the idea of your lover with someone else. Another source of obsession that should be considered is past lives. Pluto connects us to people we have known in many ways, in many lives. Past life ties are confusing as they open you to hunger that cannot be met by the person in this life. It is as if your subconscious memory of who this person was for you in a previous life awakens the hunger for what the relationship offered you in the past. It is doomed to fail because that past relationship is dead, and you will not be able to mold your current relationship to feel this hunger. It can be so strange. You want, crave, and need something from the person that they cannot possibly give. This most often creates deep confusion. If you get caught in the snare of obsession, try to examine precisely what it is about the person that you are so enamored with. It just might be that this person came into your life to awaken that quality within you rather than be it for you. If there is a deep ache involved, this is one relationship from which you will eventually have to move on. The ache is the clue. Accept the message of this newly awakened part of your character and move on. To work with Pluto, you have to be able to direct this obsessive-compulsive energy. From psychology, we tend to think of obsessive behavior as unhealthy, but it can also be directed into healthy channels. No great work of art or tremendous social achievement has ever happened other than through an obsessive-compulsive personality. Can you imagine painting the Sistine Chapel on weekends? No. Some things require the passion of total surrender to bring them into form. Now, if you're washing your hands 50 times a day, maybe you need help. But if you can direct the obsessive energy of Pluto into some creative or healthy project so that your project you have as much, so that your project has you as much as you have it, you will get the best of what it has to offer. Transformative intimacy. Intimacy is the final skill that the artist of relationships learns to master. Intimacy is all-inclusive and incorporates all of the other skills mentioned in this book. It is the state of being that two people can enter into that allows for complete merging and surrendering into the transformative power of the relationship. Passion is there at the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels. All defenses are down as the spirit of trust settles over the relationship. To achieve this, you must first be able to actualize all the relationship skills within yourself. You must know what it takes to make you feel vital, how to align with your emotional nature, how to be mindful of your own mental patterns, and how to effectively communicate with others. To know what gives you pleasure and how to share that with another. To define your boundaries, initiate activities, and act on your passion. To reach for the rewards life has to offer. To develop self-control, self-restraint, and self-discipline in order to create a responsible role for yourself within your culture. To maintain your individuality without fighting for it and continually awaken to evolutionary opportunities. To have trained your mind's eye toward inspiration and away from illusion. and to be willing to face the shadow side of yourself and others. That is all it takes to be in a sustained, intimate relationship. If this list seems daunting, have faith in the natural order of life. We would not have been given all of these parts of our character if we were not meant to develop them. The planetary map can provide guidelines, but have faith that it is in the evolutionary best interest of the planet that we learn to activate the highest potential possible in relationships. Trust that the same forces that guide the evolution of our planet will also be there guiding and assisting you. Death, the ultimate transformation. Pluto confronts us with our ultimate mortality. Undoubtedly, the biggest challenge that most of us go through is the fear of death, or the test of losing a loved one to death. The mystics tell us, death is not a tragedy. We all die, but not living your life fully for fear of death, now that is a tragic. However, there is no more sensitive issue than death, and it is typically a test for which most of us are unprepared. Death is one of the few things that all of us share in common, yet it is something that few want to face. This can be the most devastating of all human experiences, and not just for the one who has died. It is devastating for the survivors. In the Neptune chapter, we dealt with the concept of having a relationship with someone, even when you are dealing only with their psychic image. This certainly applies to the situation of death. All aspects of the relationship continue except for the physical. Emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, the relationship continues. The grief and guilt that people experience when a loved one dies certainly attest to the difficulty associated with the death experience. Intellectually, we are sorely under-equipped to deal with the process and even less prepared for how to understand it. Death as an advisor. We have grown to appreciate that you can never measure the quality or meaning of a person's life by the length of time that they are alive. Some believe that it is wonderful if a person lives to the ripe old age of 100, and tragic if a person's life ends at age 5. Yet, if a person has not learned to love in 100 years and the 5-year-old touches people's hearts, how can we say that one life was better because of the amount of time that it lasted? It is the quality, not the quantity, of time that is important. There is nothing that contrasts with life as much as death. They represent the two extreme poles of the same continuum of experience. Mystics, poets, saints, and teachers all leave us with the same message. Use death as a constant advisor. Every moment that you live might very well be your last. Doesn't that make you want to get going with your life? Do what you want to do and have those experiences that make your life special and worth living? If your life were to be taken suddenly, have you done the things you would choose to do? Have you lived your life with the gusto and courage that you would imagine? If you have used the excuse that the time is not right to say what you have to say, or make the changes that you need to make, and take part in an aspect of life that you have on the back burner, then you may be fooling yourself. You may wake up one morning and realize that time has passed you by. It is interesting to read the last thing a person writes before passing away. In many messages, you will find a theme of wishing they had not been so serious. There is one poem that comes to mind of a woman who wished she had taken more chances. Giving another go-round, she would walk in the rain more often and splash in every puddle. She wouldn't have been so stingy with her lover, and she certainly would have poured out her heart to more strangers. She would make up for the sobriety of her youth by having a good time all of the time. She would forget about respectability and never be concerned with what others think. If you knew that your life had a limited amount of time, your sense of appreciation of life today would certainly be heightened. You would start not to waste much time with petty issues. Undoubtedly, you would start living your life to the fullest. If you knew that tomorrow was going to be the last day of your life for your partner, lover, or friend, your sense of appreciation for that person would certainly be heightened as well. What would life be like if every time you say goodbye to someone, you said it as if it were the last goodbye? Imagine the depth of connection that will come to all your interactions. It is often said, live each day as if it were the first day of the rest of your life. The saying is more poignant than this way. Live each day as if it were the last day of your life. Never take a friend for granted. Enter into each relationship as if it were a rare and special gift, and indeed it will be. Pluto through the signs. Pluto's transit takes nearly 250 years to go through the entire zodiac. Its orbit is elliptical rather than circular, so it does not spend an equal amount of time in each sign. Pluto spends as little as 12 years in some signs and over 30 years in another, and averages approximately 20 years in each sign. An entire generation will share the same Pluto due to the planet's lengthy sojourn in each sign. Pluto's influence is so pervasive that it likely is not even experienced as a separate influence. It is part and parcel of an entire generation's subconsciously held beliefs. The sign of Pluto is reflected in the primary themes that animate the evolution of civilization itself. It reveals an underlying drive influencing the conscious choices of all the individuals with the same sign placement. The movement of Pluto through the signs gives credence to the concept of a generation gap. There truly are different animating forces molding the behavior of each generation. At best, passion and desire are awakened in the sign of Pluto that this generation came to transform. At worst, Pluto reveals the shadow of the sign it is in. Some of the horrors of history at any given time can be linked to the darker qualities of Pluto's sign. Although every one of the particular generation is not susceptible to worst-case scenarios, everyone will face the shadow side of Pluto in one way or another. Pluto's sign describes your generation's role in transforming the world we live in, for good or for ill. The theme of death and rebirth can feel like a fight for survival, thus Pluto's sign describes your generation's survival instincts. Look at your Pluto sign to discover the underlying animating drive that compels you and your entire generation towards certain areas of expression. In modern astrology, we no longer use the word causes in relationship to behavior, but with Pluto, compels or compulsive are acceptable as descriptive terms. The dates given in the following sections are approximate, as Pluto moves in and out of a sign during the beginning and